Hey man, Shane here. In this study, they overfed lean people with high carb and high fat diets, with each participant trying both diets. When they ate more dietary fat, the participants gained slightly more body fat, but when they ate more carbs, they gained slightly more muscle. What's actually going on here? Let's dive into it. When you hear about high fat, low carb, or ketogenic diets, they're usually aimed at overweight people who are trying to lose weight. And those diets do work. Whether you're cutting carbs or fat, either way, you're cutting calories, creating a calorie deficit. And it's that calorie deficit that drives weight loss. Even if you eat proportionally more fat, you're burning more than you store, so you'll burn it right off. Things change when you're bulking. When you're eating in a calorie surplus to gain weight, then you're more prone to storing the fat you eat as body fat. Or at least that's what this study was suggesting. But this is just one acute study. The participants were eating way too many calories and they weren't lifting weights. It wasn't even a study investigating muscle growth. It was a study looking at obesity. Plus, the differences were very small and could very well be due to random chance. There could be a grain of truth in it though. Carbs can be used to replenish the glycogen in your muscles, they can be used as a source of energy, and then whatever's left over afterwards would need to be converted into fatty acids before being stored as body fat. That conversion process, de novo lipogenesis, isn't perfectly efficient. Some of the energy is burned off as heat, reducing the size of the calorie surplus you're in and thus reducing fat storage. By a little bit, kind of. Thing is, you'll also be eating fat, and when you're eating in a calorie surplus, even if most of the extra calories you're eating are carbs, then you won't need all of the energy from that fat you're eating. You can save it for later by storing it as body fat. Now, you could cut all of the dietary fat out of your diet, preventing your body from storing any of it, but you shouldn't do that. Dietary fat is an incredibly important part of a nutritious bulking diet. Plus, even though it's not perfectly efficient, your body can convert the carbs you're eating into body fat. Only a small amount of energy is lost. So, even if you radically reduced your fat intake, you'd pay a horrendous price and you'd only make negligibly leaner gains. Here's what really matters. First, you should follow a good hypertrophy training program. When you stimulate more muscle growth, more of the calories you eat will be sent towards building muscle, fewer towards fat storage. Plus, hypertrophy training tends to burn through quite a bit of glycogen, giving your body a great place to send any extra carbs you're eating. Second, you should eat in a modest and consistent calorie surplus. That way, after you finish building muscle and after you've replenished your glycogen stores, there aren't that many extra calories left to store as body fat. And third, you need to make sure you're eating enough protein. After all, muscle is built out of the protein you eat. And from glycogen and from water, but the actual contractile tissue itself is built out of protein. If you can do those three things, you'll get great results, even if you totally ignore your carb and fat macros. With that said, for at least the past 100 years, most bodybuilders, athletes, and strongmen have been using higher carb diets to build muscle. High-fat diets have been popular with bodybuilders, but they've mainly been used for cutting, not for bulking. These approaches line up with modern research, too. For example, in our video on mass gainers, we covered a study where some of the participants were fed a bunch of extra carbs. They gained way more muscle than the control group, and they did it without gaining very much extra fat. Eating a higher carb diet isn't the only way to build muscle, but it's a very popular one, and it does work very well. Getting more of your calories from fruits, legumes, whole grains, and other starchy carbs is super healthy, and it will pack your muscles full of glycogen, making them look harder and fuller, improving your workout performance, and maybe even increasing your rate of muscle growth. If you're eating in a more casual calorie surplus, getting more of your extra calories from carbs might give you a bit more wiggle room, since they're more likely to be used for other things and less likely to be stored as fat. It's a small effect though, and it isn't magic. In our program, we usually recommend getting around 40 to 60% of your calories from carbs and more like 20 to 30% of your calories from fat, especially if you're trying to gain weight fairly fast. And since we specialize in helping skinny people bulk up, a lot of our members are trying to gain weight pretty fast. But if you want to trim back on your carbs to make more room for dietary fat, that's totally fine. It probably won't have a noticeable impact on your gains, and it might make it quite a bit easier for you to eat enough food to gain weight. I've been bulking for the past few months. I'm up 15 pounds so far, and I'm not catastrophically fat yet, even though I've been super casual with my carb and fat macros. I don't even know what my macros are. All I do is weigh myself every week, and whenever my weight gain stalls, I add a little bit more food into my diet. Plus, one of my favorite bulking foods is trail mix, which is relatively high in fat, and that's one of the reasons I like it. The nuts and seeds are super healthy, and they make it quite a bit easier for me to gain weight. Overall, I think this bodybuilding tradition of using high-carb diets to build muscle is pretty solid. It's not because fat is fattening though, it's because high-carb diets are healthy and performance-enhancing. I wouldn't think about reducing your intake of fat. We're bulking, we need more nutrients. I would just think about getting more of those extra nutrients from carbs. Think of carbs like smoothies, bananas, mangoes, other fruits, oats, other whole grains, whole grain bread, beans, rice, potatoes. There are tons of great carbs you can plumpen up your diet with. Alright, that's it for now. As always, I'd love to hear what you think down in the comments, even if you disagree with me, and I hope to see you in the next one.